Hey there everybody, it's me, Cosmo the Coder, once again, and this week we're going to be reviewing another Humble bundle. This week it is the Humble Staff Picks bundle, and it's basically another bundle in the same sort of vein. So apparently the great and wonderful pig called Hamble has just picked out these games for us to have a look at. So without further ado, let's have a look at and see what he has on offer. Pay what you want, basically the white tier. 3 games straight off. First game up is a game called 1001 Spikes. It's essentially a retro 8-bit style 2D action platformer game where you can actually have up to 4-player co-op play, or versus play if you'd rather, where you basically explore a variety of temples in search of treasure and have to deal with all kinds of manners of traps and general nastiness. It's fairly well received on, well, I say fairly, it's quite well received on Steam, sort of about 80, around the 88% mark. It's 80% on Metacritic, and overall looks pretty much fun if you're a fan of 8-bit kind of stuff. Definitely worth a little look at then, especially if you've got some friends to play with. Absolute Drift is $8.99 on Steam, and is basically a racing game where you basically get to drift around the track, avoiding various obstacles and collecting points. So it looks a bit like sort of somewhere between sort of a real life racing game and, I suppose, Micro Machines, to put it mildly, in a sort of minimalist sort of, I suppose, Mirror's Edge sort of style, which is quite fitting considering the date. It's come reviews on Steam as 70% on recently on Steam, but 90% overall, and 66% on Metacritic. Some of the main sort of problems or concerns about the game is actually that it's fairly buggy in certain places and the control system doesn't work. But it has received a few updates recently, so how relevant those reviews are now, it's a bit difficult to say without actually playing it. So just to sort of bear that in mind, guys. Snakebird. Now this one's a little bit weird, to put it mildly. It's $4.99 on Steam. It's essentially a puzzle game where it takes the game of Snake to a strange new sort of level or dimension. You literally play as a snakebird, where you're able to move around in similar style to an actual snake in the Snake game, but you basically have to collect the fruits and solve puzzles using a variety of different birds and movements, as you can see there from the video. It's only sort of a way of thinking of how to move the birds around to solve the puzzle. It's fairly well received on Steam, actually. It's extremely well received. It's 97% on Steam, so it's obviously a game that has a good following, and it's certainly worth a good look at, especially for the price. I mean, for $1, what can you say? How can you go wrong with that? And I'm burbling, so I'm going to move on. So straight in then, the green tier. Pay more than the average, and you get 2 games basically. The first one is called Hand of Fate. It's actually the most expensive in the bundle. It's $18.99 currently on Steam, and it's basically an RPG game, but you are using cards to sort of dictate what your the abilities your character has, what weapons your character has, basically everything else, and you sort of play the game to build this deck and use it to sort of complete quests in a sort of RPG world. Essentially, it's kind of a tabletop game brought to digital life in a sort of a third-person-esque game. It's got high reviews on Steam. It's around the 90s on Steam. It's got 78% on Metacritic. It looks pretty good. The card part sort of turns me off a little bit, but who's to say? You know, I'm happy to have a look at anything once. I'll play anything once, and then, you know, just make my decision there and then. Next up, we've got a game that actually is on my wish list called Death Trap, because it's actually a tower defense RPG game where you basically have to defend sort of the gates to enter your world from demons, utilizing a singular hero and a load of traps and basically devices to eliminate and prevent the monsters from getting to the sort of portals to cross into your world. I'm a big fan of tower defense games, and this actually looks pretty cool in my opinion. But and the reviews do speak for themselves. You know, 80s on Steam, about 77 on Metacritic. Not a bad game. You got a built-in map editor. You get to sort of do all kinds of different things, and there's different traps and different sort of elements to play around with. There's also a cooperative play mode, so you even get to play with friends or other people in a way of helping you complete the actual levels. So overall, it looks a pretty decent kind of game. $14.99 on Steam, not a bad game at all. Now, this is obviously a bundle that has more games coming soon, unlike last week's bundle, but what those are going to be is a bit difficult to say because the genre is all over the place. As with the previous sort of Staff Picks bundle, it's crossing all different ones, so it's difficult to even begin to imagine where it's going to go with this one. But wait for a week and we'll see quite cleanly. Visceral. So sorry, I just jumped there. So $10 blue tier gets you all of this and 2 further games. Visceral Cleanup Detail. It's kind of the anti-first-person shooter game, to put it simply. It's $9.99 on Steam, but you also get the DLC, the House of Horror DLC, which is another £1.99 on top. So it's a pretty good deal in that kind of terms. It's essentially a simulation game where you basically play a space janitor tasked with cleaning up horrific science fiction events. There's no guns, there's no sort of death or violence or anything, at least that's already sort of happened. Instead, what you've basically got to do is clean up after everything. So you have to take body parts, scrub up blood, basically get rid of all of the rubbish and make it all nice and clean and tidy. Yeah, so let's seriously, no guns, just a mop and bucket. It's got 93% overall on Steam. It's 85% fairly recently, so it's all, it's extremely well received. It's quite a lot of fun apparently, and you can do it cooperatively just for the sheer hell of it. It's also got some actual sort of references to other games. For instance, if you've played the more recent Shadow Warrior game, it actually has a level where you're cleaning up after one of the battles in Shadow Warrior. At the beginning of the game, you basically cut up a load of bad guys, so you actually are playing that level where you're getting rid of all the bodies, all the blood, all the gore. Essentially, it's the complete opposite of the science fiction, of a first-person shooter. Rather than make the mess, you've got to clean the mess. So if you have aspirations of being a janitor, this is your game. What a load of crap. Sorry. Okay, Craft the World is, well, essentially it's a sandbox strategy game where you issue commands to dwarves to build your own fortress and craft all the items you need, like weapons, armor, etc. It's essentially, let's get rid of that advert, essentially a build your own world kind of thing. It's similar to games like Dungeon Keeper, Terraria. I always get the name on Terraria, Dwarf Fortress. It's sort of a big combination of all those kind of games. It's in the high 90s. It's 90ish on Steam. I was going to say high 90s, but it's sort of fairly high reviews in Steam. Definitely a good look at if you're into your sort of building games or your simulation games or anything along those games that I mentioned, like Dungeon Keeper especially, because it literally looks like it to most degree, although it's on a 2D side-on view. I'm trying to think of the right name then. Definitely a good look at, and especially for the price, $13.99 on Steam. I'm quite happy with that bundle, to be honest. There is a second blue tier where you pay $40 or more to get basically a premium Hamble plush. So if you really want a cuddly piggy, there you go, you can get one quite easily here. I'm quite happy with my cuddly, where has he gone? Face hugger. Cuddly face hugger. But I'm not really in the mood for that. So, but for $10 or more, I'm quite happy to pay for this bundle, because overall, although the games are a bit out there compared to some bundles, it's definitely worth a good look at, because the games themselves are highly reviewed and you can see for yourself just how different they all are from sort of the general sort of games that you might get, say, I don't know, in any kind of normal sale. It sort of expands the whole sort of repertoire, shall we say. As I mentioned, the narrative bundle had no expansion, so it's pretty much exactly the same as last week. So as always, it is an exceptionally good deal, especially for the first tier games. It's quite amazing to think that these 3 games are actually just pay what you want. Her Story, especially considering the number of awards it won. So definitely worth a good look at if you're even slightly interested in any of the games on the narrative bundle. And that's about it, guys. Just a little reminder that I have done my Humble monthly bundle, and I have in it mentioned how I'm going to give away my copy of Rocket League and 2 other games. By all means, check it out. Otherwise, I'll click this here and say thank you guys for watching very much. As always, like, subscribe, have a look around on my YouTube channel if you fancy it, and let me know what you think of my review. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time for another Humble Bundle review.